All right. Hello, guys. Let me turn my camera on. Oh, it's a little rough. Hey, Tuesday night. Time for a little filter action. I've been away for a few weeks, and it's good to be back. We got kind of a full house tonight, but we got a great topic to discuss. The name of tonight's episode is I Am Satoshi, right? Yeah, we had some big news this last week, and we're going to get to that. That's going to take up the bulk of our time. So don't worry, we're going to pick it all apart. So let's kick things off here. Let me share my screen. We'll cut the music here in a second here. All right. All right, folks. I'm Slim Satoshi. Is that what I said before? I am Satoshi. I'm Slim Satoshi. Anyway, little play on words. We got, I don't know, some kind of impersonation going on, some kind of elaborate scam. Maybe he is the real Satoshi and he planted the scam. There's a lot of game theory going on here. It's never dull. This is the latest in the Bitcoin soap opera. As I like to say, it never gets dull. We're going to talk about Mr. Craig Wright, who's rapping there to the tune of I'm Slim Shady, trying to get everyone to be convinced that he is the Satoshi Nakamoto. We're going to talk about that. Before we do, let's go through some of the preliminaries. We are coming to you live from Hubud. It is the premier co-working space in downtown Ubud, right across the street from the Monkey Forest. We do this rain or shine from Hubud every week, Tuesday night, 5 p.m. local time. If you find yourself in Bali, I hope you'll come and join us. We have a lot of fun. Hubud, check it out at hubud.org. When we're not together, we have a little conversation going on Twitter. If you check out hashtag Bitcoins in Bali, you can see what we're up to. And I'm just going to tweet out a little tweet with that hashtag, letting everybody know that we are back in action here in Bali. Yeah, hopefully somebody will tune in. Hello, welcome, welcome. Good timing. Pull up a chair. Nice to see you, Lucia. All right. The other thing we got going on is our Facebook page. Did you guys see we have over 800 people in the Facebook group now? It's kind of a lot of people. This is where we discuss what's happening in the Bitcoin world when we're not together in person. We have this online discussion going on Facebook. Whenever you find something interesting, you can put it here and we'll talk about it. And if it gets a lot of action, we'll talk about it live in person. Of course, dominating the headlines this week has been this stuff about Craig Wright, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Lots of good posts on the Facebook group about Craig Wright. We also have our YouTube channel. The Filter is the YouTube channel, and I'll put a link in the Facebook event if you need to find this. We broadcast all of these meetings on Tuesday night, at least when I'm in town, and sometimes when I'm not. And they go up on this YouTube channel. So including this episode tonight will go up. So if you miss it, or if you want to watch something else, or if you want to pick apart some sort of factual statement I've made after the fact and confront me with it next week, please go and check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to that. What else is going on? We've got Bitcoin 101, little local news. It's going to happen on May 21st. We try to do this every month. There's lots of merchants that accept Bitcoin, and the thing that the Bitcoin world needs is people to walk around with Bitcoin on their phone and spend Bitcoin, use Bitcoin. This is my opinion. Smart people can differ on this. A lot of people don't think you should buy a cup of coffee with a Bitcoin, but I beg to differ. And you can buy coffee with Bitcoin here in Ubud. You can practically live on Bitcoin here in Ubud, thanks to all the work that people have done. Part of that is this Bitcoin 101. So we've got Bitcoin 101 coming up Saturday, May 21st. Only 13 spots left. How many spots in the class? 13. But that sounds like I put a little off number just to make it seem like maybe like it used to be 20 and now it's 13. But anyway, hi, come on in. Yeah, come join us. Welcome. Speaking of people that accept Bitcoin or merchants that accept Bitcoin, there's now on CoinMap over 7,000 businesses that accept Bitcoin around the world. I was just in South Africa for the last 6 weeks, and I can tell you there are not very many. It's kind of a ghost town down there, but South Africa is a great place, could be a great place for Bitcoin. I talked with a lot of Bitcoin enthusiasts, but there isn't a lot of, kind of grassroots action happening there. There's actually a great Bitcoin exchange called BitX. They've got these cool offices right downtown Cape Town, but there aren't a lot of places that accept Bitcoin. So kind of interesting.
Online businesses or just physical establishments?
These are physical locations for the most part. Lots in Europe, lots in North America, lots in Bali, not so much in Mongolia. But let's take a look at this here. This is kind of interesting. This is kind of based on the work that that people have done locally. I haven't looked at the numbers just yet, just recently, but before I left for Africa, there were more Bitcoin accepting merchants in Bali than in Jakarta or Singapore. And it looks, based on the heat map, that it's probably still true. Hey guys, welcome, welcome. And let's take a look down here. So we've got about 23 up in Ubud, including a brand new Bitcoin storefront location. Is that correct? Is that where you guys? Didn't I see it? Yeah. How's that going, by the way? Yeah. Yeah. So it's a Bitcoin storefront where you can learn about Bitcoin. You can exchange Bitcoin for rupiah and vice versa. And you talk to merchants about accepting Bitcoin and things like that. Anyway, super cool. A great place to exchange Bitcoin for rupiah or rupiah for Bitcoin. Got a liquid market here in Indonesia. Actually, the Bitcoin exchange here in Indonesia just dwarfs the exchanges in South Africa, which is fascinating to me. So let's see here. I wanted to tell you guys, look at all these merchants in Ubud that accept Bitcoin. We got to get the Bitcoin storefront on this map, by the way. I don't see you guys on here. But there's a new addition to the map. I don't know if you guys are aware. Anybody ever been to Bali, Bohemia? Yeah. Bali, Bohemia is accepting Bitcoin. I think they're on the map here. Yeah, here they are. Yeah, they do. They have live events. They've got good food. They've got a hotel. They rent motorbikes. This is actually a good addition to the folks that accept Bitcoin because they do it all. You can even take a rafting trip and pay for it with Bitcoin at Bali, Bohemia. They do it. They have a whole kind of tour service that they arrange there. So not this week, but next week, we're going to go to Bali, Bohemia after this meeting. So get ready for that. Here's Bali, Bohemia. You can see it's a beautiful spot. We've got a really beautiful place there. All right. Now, I got a little thing to share with you, a little promotional video that was actually created last year. It's been in the works. The editing process has taken a little longer than we thought, but I wanted to share this with you. Check this out, guys. Hopefully this will be loud enough for everyone to hear. Now this is a bit of a call to action, trying to get more local merchants involved, right? Also trying to make Bali a Bitcoin destination. This is a continuation of a lot of the work we did with Bit Islands, and we're still working in conjunction with them. Still working in conjunction with bitcoin.co.id so that they can basically convert their Bitcoin into rupiah in real time. But we're looking for help, right? We're looking for people to get involved. It's really a grassroots effort to build a Bitcoin community here. Last July, I tried to live my life on Bitcoin for the whole month of July, and we're not quite there yet. But we had a lot of help from a lot of folks. It's not just me kind of banging the drum. There's lots of people involved, and we're looking for more. At the Bitcoins in Bali website, we've got this Get Involved page, and I'm going to post that video here and trying to drive traffic to this page where this outlines kind of how you can get involved, the kind of things that we need help with, and basically, if you're at all interested, I'd like to hear from you. So get in touch. If you got anybody in mind that you think might be interested in this kind of thing, let me know. Let's get together. Let's brainstorm. I think we've got a really good thing going here, especially after having traveled a little bit and seeing what's going on elsewhere. And hopefully we can keep the thing going. So yeah, this is at Bitcoins in Bali / get involved. And I'll put that in I'll put the links in the show notes. All right, let's talk about the price. We're in Indonesia. We always look at bitcoin.co.id, the largest Bitcoin exchange in Indonesia. You know, there's bitcoin.co.id is one of the biggest exchanges in the world. Sometimes they go in and out of the top 10. A lot of people forget there's 250 million people in Indonesia. A lot of them have technology. They got smartphones. They're interested in trading, and well, the volume is a little low today, but oftentimes I see this number up over 2,000 Bitcoins a day, 2,500 Bitcoins a day. But in Indonesia, we're talking about 5,800,000 rupiah for one Bitcoin. That's the going price here. But usually people are used to talking in terms of dollars, so let's check that out. And up to the minute global average, $448.79. And if we look at the Bitcoin time machine, we quote this price every week, so we take a look at what has happened over the week, and you can see we're up around 460. These are highs, I think, within the last year. 465 is kind of a high point. We've come off those, a little bit of profit taking, I guess, and this is kind of interesting. This happened yesterday when we learned about who Satoshi Nakamoto was. Anyone care to speculate why? Maybe it's just a coincidence, but do you think the price should go down if we know who Satoshi Nakamoto is? Anybody?
I think it's probably a profit take because they'll maybe worry about oversupply and releasing these coins into their distribution.
I hadn't thought about that.
That's what I think straight away.
Right, because he's got hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin that he could sell. And is it?
500 million,
I'm not sure. I know it's a lot of money. It could certainly move the price.
It's like 10% of the total market cap.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That would be my view.
That's actually a good theory. Yeah, I wasn't sure. There's definitely a correlation between the news and the drop in price. So this is your opportunity to log on to bitcoin.co.id and buy some Bitcoins. Buy the dips, as they say. BTFD, I think is the acronym. I don't know. Well, we're going to talk about, I have a little bit of speculative information. And by the way, don't buy any Bitcoin because I said so. I'm not a financial advisor, blah, blah, blah. I hate those disclaimers. Yeah, you're all autonomous individuals who can make your own decisions. I assume that's the case. So,
what about that big drop on the left around the 28th or something? It's like,
well, this is let's take a look at more context. Here's the by month, and this is, let's see, what is this? Oh, it went up to 470 a few months back. But you can see sometimes when there's a precipitous rise, like you see here, there's profit taking. Okay. If there's a precipitous rise, then sometimes there's some profit taking, and oftentimes you test former lows and highs when you see this kind of thing happening. But you know, I'm not a day trader. I don't always understand why these prices move this way. But it's interesting that there's a lot of price movement as we move towards this halving day, which is going to happen in mid-July. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I thought this was kind of interesting too. The volatility numbers are again way down, despite all of this price movement. These are the kind of numbers that we've, maybe not in a 30-day period, but in larger currencies, we're seeing this kind of movement in big currencies like the yen and the euro and the dollar. Maybe there's a longer time period, but definitely the global currency markets are much more volatile than they usually are. And if you look at the volatility for Bitcoin, this is a graph of Bitcoin volatility. And if you were to draw a regression line straight through here, it's undeniable that volatility is going down, right? That means the price is more stable, right? And it makes it easier to do business with Bitcoin. You don't have to rely on futures contracts and hedging and all kinds of other kind of tricks of the trade in order to protect yourself against the risk of volatility. The volatility is definitely going down over time, and it seems like volatility in other currencies, the main currencies, the fiat currencies around the world, is going up. There's just lots of funny business going on, and it is. If you're in Forex, you're probably making a lot of money, because the FX traders, if they're good ones, they make money when things move around, and things are definitely moving around.
You can argue that this year it's to some extent just.
It is. It's a crazy year. Well, you know, these can cause real problems for businesses. You know, back in 1997, we had the Asian contagion, right? The Asian crash of the late 90s, when the Thai baht was decoupled from the dollar, and then it veered wildly, like it changed wildly versus the dollar, and that had knock-on ramifications for all kinds of businesses throughout Asia. People went broke, not by running their business poorly, but just because the currency market went nuts, right? And actually that had repercussions all the way back to Wall Street, and this big firm called Long-Term Capital Management almost went bust. That was the first bailout, the first Wall Street bailout. It's a great story if you're so inclined to read about this kind of thing. It's like cloak and dagger and personality conflicts and soap opera stories all over the place. But the whole world is connected now, and when currencies start to vary wildly against one another, it causes problems. So you can only imagine, you know, if you've got a project in Indonesia and you've got a lot of debt in US dollars, and the Indonesian rupiah loses, say, 20% against the dollar, like it has or had over the last 2 years. If your project lasts 2 years, you're kind of in trouble, right? Or you might be. This is serious business. Hopefully it's not too boring or esoteric, but it's if you're paying attention, it's really fascinating if you get into the details. Main point though is Bitcoin volatility going down, world currency volatility going up. I don't know. I could say a lot more about it, but let's press on here. All right, little health check of Bitcoin. This is the statistics. You know, Bitcoin is different from other currencies because we know everything about it at all times because it's transparent. We know the total supply down to the individual Bitcoin, 15,499,975 Bitcoins, right? In fact, if I would hit refresh, this would probably change, right? Because every 10 minutes we get 25 new Bitcoins. Here's the block reward. 25 Bitcoins is the reward for participating in the Bitcoin system. All those miners around the world, they're running Bitcoin software. Every 10 minutes, somebody in the world gets 25 new Bitcoins as a reward. But as soon as we get to the 420,000 block, this is going to be cut in half, right? So every 10 minutes, instead of $11,000 being created, there's only going to be $5,000 created. Now think about if you're a miner, if you're one of these big mining companies that has spent millions and millions of dollars on all this hardware, and all of a sudden on some date in July, your income stream is going to be cut in half, right? Theoretically. Right now, the Bitcoin ecosystem absorbs about 1.5 million US dollars per day. So every day that the Bitcoin price stays exactly the same, it really has grown by 1.5 or so million dollars because there's been the increase in Bitcoin supply over the course of that day, right? But on a certain day in July, let me see the next, this is kind of hard to see, but the estimated halving day is July 11th. Is that right? Am I seeing that right?
Yeah.
So around about the middle of July, we're going to have halving day. And I'm planning on having a party. You guys are all invited. It's a kind of a nerdy party to celebrate the halving of Bitcoin. It only happens every 4 years. You know, some people like the World Cup. Some people like the Olympics. This is like the Olympics for Bitcoin. Sure, it'll be really nerdy and fun. But anyway, in July, there will be a date when some new block will only get a 12.5 Bitcoin reward instead of 25. Now, what does that mean? What that means is for the current profitability outlook for a miner depends on the price being 400, what was it, 450 something, right? And imagine if your input stream was cut in half, right? All of a sudden, all of these mining operations, well, who knows if they can accommodate such a change in their economic outlook. But unless the price doubles, their block reward will be cut in half. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be very interesting. This has happened once before, and the last time it happened was the very first time it happened. It happens about every 4 years, like I said. Nobody knew if it was actually going to work. Nobody knew what was going to happen, right? But as soon as it happened and the blockchain settled out and everybody was getting half the reward they were getting last time, that's when we saw the Bitcoin price go crazy, right? A few months later, after that happened, we ran up to 250 and then back down, and then we ran up to 1,200 and then back down, and all the activity, most people didn't even know about Bitcoin the last time this happened, and now lots more people know about this. And some people say the Bitcoin price is already reflecting this change, but I don't know. I don't know.
These Bitcoin miners, are these some really big ones?
Bitcoin miners, yes. There are individual mining pools that have between 20 and 25% of the entire hashing power.
So is that like a lot of private individuals have invested?
Yes, but there are also companies that have gone public and publicly bought. You know, a public company, you have to disclose your business plan, etc. And they've bought millions, if not tens of millions of dollars worth of hardware. They're sitting in data centers with fixed costs. I don't know how they plan to mitigate those costs. You know, I'm not a miner, so I probably shouldn't even comment, but they have very sophisticated operations. Of course, they know this halving is coming, and you know, perhaps when they made their original plans, they made plans to recoup their initial investment by the time this happens. But this is another graph. Sorry to throw up so many graphs. This is Bitcoin difficulty over time, and you can see that we've only had one reduction in difficulty, which means that there's more and more and more miners, more and more computing power and technology being applied to the Bitcoin network. So all of this presumably requires more and more investment. So the miners don't seem to be slowing down in terms of their investment. What's that? This is the difficulty to mine new Bitcoins. So basically, every 2 weeks, the Bitcoin network takes a look at how much mining power is out there, and then the difficulty is adjusted.
I think if the difficulty decreases, it means that
there are, there has been, something happened in the technology side. I mean, it's not necessarily that the miners decreased or the miners increased.
There were either fewer miners or people took really high-powered hardware off the system.
Yeah.
We don't really know.
No, but I mean, is that difficulty change of the? The difficulty of the difficulty constant in the mining algorithm, or is measured on?
It's the difficulty constant in that the Bitcoin network decides they will use.
Okay, so at that point, the constant decreased in value.
Right. Yes. Okay. So during the previous 2 weeks to that, there were fewer miners than the period before that.
So if it decreased in value,
that means people are taking their
to make it easier to mine.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Which means all the miners in the world are, some subset of them are using their machines for other things. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's interesting though that the difficulty just seems to be going up and up and up, even though we've got this halving coming. Could it be that they're assuming that the price will double in order to accommodate the halving in the inflation rate? Because it would have to double in order for their business models to keep making sense.
Is the halving rule written into the network?
It's written into the Bitcoin system, the Bitcoin kind of rule set.
So it's public knowledge and it's going to happen in years no matter what.
Yes,
So
yes.
people, business to invest in hardware and human resources to mine, they are already under
They are.
potential risk.
Yep, from the first day that Bitcoin was invented, people knew this was going to happen. Yeah, so it won't be a surprise to anybody. But what happens will be a surprise.
Was it supposed to be a case that the velocity of Bitcoin economy would increase and the fee associated with spending Bitcoin would increase and the miners would get the money from the fees on the spending? But
yeah,
the velocity of Bitcoin hasn't increased to the extent that it's supposed to with the halving of the mining.
Yeah, well, the whole idea, you're right, that's a good point to make. The idea behind Bitcoin is the block reward goes down, but it's replaced by fees. Like when you send some Bitcoin, you attach a little fee, and the presumption is that those fees will replace the block reward, but we're not there yet. We're definitely not creating, well, actually, I'd be curious to see how much they make in fees, but I doubt it's even approaching $1.5 million a day like the block reward is. But
what's the point of the halving? Is it to slow down
it's
production?
It's the inflation rate for the currency, right? So it's how much the currency inflates, and at the beginning of the life cycle, you need to incentivize more people to participate. And as time goes on, presumably you don't, and the value goes up, you don't need to incentivize as much. And eventually the number of Bitcoins is finite by design, and you can't get from an inflation rate of over 10% to nothing without decreasing it somehow. So that's the way they do it. All right, let's see here. Okay, where are we? Yeah.
So is it written to sort of constrain the supply of Bitcoin? Because before solve this problem, people accept that mine excessively and putting more supply in the demand. Or is it?
Well, it doesn't pretend to say anything about demand. Nobody knew what the demand for Bitcoin would be, 6 years later. But it presumed that there would be some measure of demand, and it was taking this step on the supply side to basically incentivize the entire system to survive. But we'll see if Satoshi's choices were good ones, because these rules are set in stone, right? These are things you cannot change, or would be very difficult to change.
So that is conversation or decision based on so like historical currency markets, or is it
Well,
judgment?
I know that Satoshi wrote a lot about comparing Bitcoin to gold and trying to mimic the supply and demand curve for gold. A lot of people say Bitcoin is gold with a teleporter, but I think it was a bit arbitrary. Nobody knew how this would unfold. It was kind of an arbitrary choice, really. I mean, every 4 years there's a halving. Like, you pick that out of a hat. The difficulty changes every 2 weeks. You pick that out of a hat. A lot of the altcoins make different decisions about those things. But anyway, time will tell. But this July is going to be exciting. There's going to be some fireworks in July.
Still talking about the halving? Come on.
Let's see. The other interesting thing, I don't know if you guys have looked at this while I was gone, but did you see what nodes are running out there? Bitcoin Classic has the largest share of the Bitcoin nodes out there. So we've still got the block size debate happening. We still don't know what's going to happen with the block size. Of course, Bitcoin Classic is calling for a 2 megabyte block size increase, and there's lots of PR around that effort. And it's a little bit misleading because if you combine the reference client 12.0 and 12.1, you get a bigger number than Classic. But I don't know if you guys have been looking at this, but this is a lot different than when before I left. Bitcoin Classic has made quite a large jump, although nothing will happen unless it gets up to around, I think, 70 or 75%. But pretty interesting. All right, let's get to the point. I think Stamen is chomping at the bit. You ready to talk about
Thank you
Satoshi?
for waiting for me. You know.
I was killing time, man. You know, take a call. I'm on your side. Teamwork. All right. BBC News. This is the headline. Australian Craig Wright claims to be Bitcoin creator. Hallelujah, we found him. Wait, isn't this the guy we found back in December? It's the same guy? Isn't this the same guy? He looks familiar. Do you guys remember the first time we saw him? I got a little screenshot back here when he appeared on a panel, but he wasn't actually there. We talked about this back in December, right? And there was all kinds of problems, all kinds of deceit around the possibility that this guy was Satoshi Nakamoto. And if you go back and watch this video, he's just got a really strange way about him. I'm with Stamen. You made a comment on the message boards that if you're a poker player, you can tell this guy is, I don't know, a little bit flaky. But hey, you judge for yourself. This was the first time we saw him, the first time we talked about him. But let's go back to, let's see, where are we? Yes, the BBC. He has now done a press release, a collaboration, if you will, a la Julian Assange, where he has picked his news outlets for this special release. And the BBC is one of them. The second one was The Economist. It's a good choice. And the third one, does anyone know? It's really obvious. I mean, if you're going to talk about cryptocurrencies, this is the place to go. Third news outlet that he gave an exclusive to, GQ magazine, which is where I go for all my crypto coin news and fashion advice. Did you know that your socks should match your pants, not your shoes? So very important. If you read GQ, you'd know that. Okay, so all right, let's just let the man speak for himself. Everyone who plays poker, watch carefully.
My name's Craig Wright, and I'm about to demonstrate a signing of a message with the public key that is associated with the first transaction ever done on Bitcoin.
And who does the world think did that first transaction? What's the name associated with that first transaction?
The monk here is Satoshi Nakamoto.
So you're going to show me that Satoshi Nakamoto is you?
Yes. Some people will believe, some people won't. And to tell you the truth, I don't really care.
But you can say, hand on heart to me, I am Satoshi Nakamoto.
I was the main part of it. Other people helped me.
Why did you feel, though, that you had to come out? And why did you feel you had to keep secret for so long?
I would prefer to be secret now. I don't think I should have to be out there. There's nothing owed to the world where I have to come out and say, I am X, I am Y. I mean, no one needs to do that. It is my right not to say I did something. If I release a paper that actually benefits people, why do I have to actually take credit for it? Why do I?
Wouldn't you be proud to be known as Satoshi Nakamoto?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I have to bounce around in front of TV cameras.
You could say you've invented something amazing and that you want to say, I am the man who invented this.
I want to work. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, and that's what I'm going to do. And I don't work and invent and write papers and code by coming in front of TVs. I don't want money. I don't want fame. I don't want adoration. I just want to be left alone.
I mean, one of the stories that came out was that you were under investigation by the Australian tax authorities. Was that true? And is that anything to do with this?
No, I have companies that are under audit. The reason for that is we have told the ATO everything. We have told them about the tax issues and implications. We actually put in everything with the auditors. We were using KPMG and a number of tax lawyers at the time, and we had internal audit, and we supplied that to the tax office so that we could try and pay the correct amount of tax. And because no one understands Bitcoin very well, and no one understands the timing or anything like that, then it's still an ongoing matter. So we have lawyers negotiating how much tax I owe.
Because people assume that Satoshi Nakamoto must be fabulously rich. The inventor of Bitcoin must have vast stores of Bitcoin and therefore be incredibly rich.
What matters isn't how much I have, it's when I use it. Because I've got an asset class that has gone up in value, doesn't mean I pay tax on it now. I pay tax when it's deployed, only on the bits that are deployed, no more.
And are you planning to deploy, as you put it, any of that Bitcoin?
I've deployed enough and I'm happy where I am. I'm not looking for money, and this is one comment I want to make to people. I don't want money. I don't want help. And I'm categorically going to say this, and I'm making sure that things are being put in place with lawyers and whatever else. If anyone puts me up for awards or anything like that, I will never, ever accept a cent, ever. If you put me for a Nobel Prize, if you put me for an ACM Turing medal, if you put me up for some honor, I will never accept a cent from any of you for anything.
I did not have
Why
sex
now?
with that.
Why have you decided to identify yourself as Satoshi Nakamoto?
I didn't decide. I had people decide this matter for me. And they're making life difficult, not for me, but my friends, my family, my staff. I have staff here in London. I have staff overseas. And they want to be private. They don't want all of this to affect them. And I don't want any of them to be impacted by this. None of it's true. There are lots of stories out there that have been made up. And I don't like it hurting those people I care about. So I'm going to do this once, and once only. I'm going to come in front of a camera once, and I will never, ever be on a camera ever again for any TV station or any media, ever.
There you have it, guys. I'm kind of sorry I told you my opinion first. But is there anybody that, well, what do you guys think? Anybody have a thought on this? Is this the guy?
Sounds like he just drew the short straw of things. There's a theory that the Satoshis, like, it's a group of people. I think to some extent, for something like that to come out, it's too complex for just one person to reach out with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, he says he had help.
Yeah, he had help.
Mm-hmm. In fact, he's trying to protect those people because, because people are besmirching his name. He doesn't want them. He wants them to remain private. That's why he's going to the BBC, The Economist, and GQ, right?
It does, just from that one, it sounds like he drew a short straw.
What? Say more about that. What do you mean?
Well, someone had to take a fall
Yeah.
Can you explain why the other people asked? Well, he said it wasn't my choice to come out. So
Yeah, it's unclear what he means by that. Presumably his lawyers or the tax people are telling them that.
The day that he was first theorised that it was him, the Australian Federal Police raided his house. You know, apparently unconnected matter, which is absolute bullshit. So I imagine, and what he's saying, the Australian tax law is like, if he's claiming he's got that 450 million worth of Bitcoin, it's up for a massive Australian tax law. So that's why I don't understand why he'd come out and say it if it's he's going to be on the hook for Australian tax. In tax law, it's the reverse burden of proof. So you can, the tax officers, and this is how they got Al Capone, is they just go, we think based on your ownership of Bitcoins as Satoshi, here's a $200 million tax bill. And then it's up to you to prove that they're wrong. So that's the reverse burden of proof. That's how they got Capone. So they could just whack him with a 200 million assessment and basically bankrupt him and put him in jail.
That's all true, and that's interesting. What was interesting about what he was saying was that he doesn't need money, and he's already deployed what he's going to deploy, and he doesn't need to move any of the coins that are actually there. And this proof that he's giving us did not move any of those original Bitcoins around. Like, let's just stop for a second. Like, let's say that you wanted me to prove that I own some Bitcoins. Let's say I'm going to buy your yacht, right? And you're showing me the yacht, and you're like, I don't want to bother showing you my yacht unless you have the money to pay. Well, I can say, well, look at this Bitcoin address. You know, it's the Genesis block. It's the first 50 Bitcoins ever made. How can I prove that those Bitcoins are mine? All right, I could send you like 0.2 of a cent from that account. Can prove that I have the ability to spend those Bitcoins. It's pretty unequivocal if I were to do that. Well, that's one way. Another way would be to sign a message or decipher a message encoded with one of the public keys known to belong to Satoshi Nakamoto. So you can take those one of those first Bitcoin transactions. I mean, presumably Satoshi Nakamoto mined the very first block of Bitcoins. By the way, it hasn't moved since it was first mined. You know, I could.
What does he mean by Bitcoin? Does he mean
spending?
Spend.
Yeah.
Like, use it as a currency. But like, so two things that I found really hard to believe. He said he has an asset of equity that went up in value, and he's not paying taxes unless he spend it. That should not be true, right? Because
it depends on your tax jurisdiction, and maybe Blair could
say
say.
tax in Australia, so
But you don't have to pay until you spend it, right?
that's what his theory. That's what.
Because it's
Technically, no, but there's so many different loopholes around it. But theoretically, you don't incur your tax bill until you've actually sold the asset. And then they look at what was the value of the asset when it started, what was the value of the asset when it finished, and then you pay tax on the gain. It's called capital gains tax.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is with the regulatory stuff around Bitcoin and what actually is it and what's it classified as. My understanding is that in Australia it was being classified as a commodity, which means you've got to pay prices, you've got to pay tax on the fluctuation of the price movement on tax period to tax period to tax period. I haven't looked into that, I haven't done any research on it, but that's my understanding. So he hasn't paid any money in the last 4 years on this going from 0 to 450 million.
Mm-hmm. And he says he has deployed some of it because he refuses to deploy any of the stuff that we know about.
But on the beginning of the video, he mentioned that he's going to use the private key of Satoshi Nakamoto to show the journalist is actually the guy.
Right.
Does it prove? Does it do that?
Well, let's see. Let's take a look at what he's actually doing. He's got a blog post. So this is his blog post that where he basically says, I'm Satoshi Nakamoto, right? Let's see this. It's quite cryptic. Forgive the pun, but I remember reading that quote many years ago, and I've carried it with me, unfortunately, ever since. However, after many years and having experienced the ebb and flow of life those years have brought, I think I am finally at peace with what he meant. I think this is true, but in my heart, I wish it wasn't. And then he just publishes a number, right? And it's like, I don't know, I think this is like kind of geeky cloak and dagger, like, of course, if you're nerdy enough, you know what this means. And then he takes the mantle. He says, I've been staring at my screen for hours, but I cannot summon the words to express the depth of the gratitude of those that have supported the Bitcoin project from its inception. Too many names to list. He's giving his acceptance speech, after crowning himself Satoshi Nakamoto because of this number right here.
And also proposing the prizes that should be awarded, like the Nobel Museum Turing Award.
Yeah, that's
because he said he doesn't want the money from them, but he didn't say he doesn't want them.
Has Satoshi been put forward for a Nobel Prize anyway?
They talked about it, but I don't think it actually happened. You have to be
only a natural person can actually be
right. I know for a fact that you can't get the Nobel Prize posthumously, and we don't even know if Satoshi Nakamoto is alive or dead. So I don't think he could really be nominated until we know who he is for sure.
The weird thing out of this was the endorsement by Gavin Andrews.
Yes. Let's take a look at that. This is also strange. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. I believe Craig Stephen Wright is the person who invented Bitcoin. I was flown to London to meet Dr. Wright a couple of weeks ago after an initial email conversation convinced me that there was a very good chance he was the same person I'd communicated with in 2010 and early 2011. After spending time with him, I am convinced beyond a reasonable doubt Craig Wright is Satoshi. Part of that time was spent on a carefully cryptographic verification of messages signed with keys that only Satoshi should possess. But even before I witnessed the keys signed and then verified on a clean computer, that could not have been tampered with. I was reasonably certain that I was sitting next to the father of Bitcoin. During our meeting, I saw the brilliant, opinionated, focused, generous, and privacy-seeking person that matches the Satoshi I worked with 6 years ago. And he cleared up a lot of mysteries, including why he disappeared, blah, 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 blah. We love to create heroes, but also seem to love hating them if they don't live up to some unattainable ideal. It would be better if Satoshi Nakamoto was a code name for an NSA project or an artificial intelligence sent from the future. But instead, what does he say? He is not. He is an imperfect human being just like the rest of us. I hope he manages to mostly ignore the storm that his announcement will create. I find this really fishy and weird. This is just, is anybody with me on this? Like, this is one of the original first people that communicated with Satoshi. He's been involved with the project ever since. He was part of the Bitcoin Foundation. He's been paid by MIT to develop for Bitcoin. But to me it like rings of something that was written for him, like why? Like if I was talking about you, Blair, would I ever say like, what does he say? You're an imperfect individual. Like, isn't that something you say about yourself? Like it's like a self-effacing. I don't know.
I think I mean the code that you showed in the last page was in the previous page was the actual private key.
No, it was not the private key. He hasn't published the private key because then someone could go and spend those bitcoins.
But how many bitcoins did Satoshi mine with that key?
He's talking about the key that's represented on this. Here's a copy of the blockchain. You can see back in 2009. Can you guys see that? Does it need to be focused? This is the block that he's talking about. Oh, there we go. You can see this is one of the original blocks. Here's what it looks like on the blockchain when there's nothing that comes before. This is a block that was mined back in 2009. Back then, the block reward was 50 bitcoins. right? And you can see that there was some experimentation that took place back in 2009, right? And then also there's some things moving around here just within the last day or two. So these transactions have taken place, and it was in block number 9, right? So this is when experimentation is taking place, right? You're sending Bitcoins. Hey, did you get the Bitcoin? Like, oh, well, and presumably Satoshi Nakamoto could be working with multiple developers. And one of the developers could say, well, how do I prove that I have control over these Bitcoins? And Satoshi could have proved to somebody that he had control over these Bitcoins, right? And produce a hash of a file, which is exactly what this guy, Craig Wright, has done. And if that was out there, then somebody else could pose as Satoshi Nakamoto by providing the same exact hash of the same exact file. That's speculation, but it's a weird way to prove something, because he could prove it so easily by just sending, 10 cents to a journalist. The journalist also suggested that they give that the journalists provide a file that they've encrypted with the public key that only Satoshi Nakamoto could decrypt, and he refused. So that's fishy, right? But Gavin Andreessen claims to have taken a trip to London, met with Dr. Wright, calls him Dr. Wright.
He's pretty smart too, though. It's not just some joke log off the street.
At least some of those degrees that he claims to have are in question, and almost all of them are from correspondence type schools. But he is. Question?
What is this literature in terms of his papers? What's the
that's good.
The initial Bitcoin papers, it was written, I believe, in 2 different. The literature was inconsistent in terms of.
Thus pointing to a team of people, right? And they actually ran. This is, I forget what this is called. There's a whole discipline around identifying the author of certain writing. So they'll use machine learning. They'll put a bunch of someone's writing in the machine learning, and they'll expose it to a new piece of writing and say, did this person likely write this or not? Yeah, it's like done this trying to figure out who Shakespeare was, for example, right? And they've got enough of Craig Wright's writing to say, okay, we're going to give the computer 100 papers written by Craig Wright, and then we're going to ask the computer, did he write the Satoshi paper? And the computer said no. The computer says no. But who knows? I don't know how accurate these things are. People say they're accurate. The computer says he didn't write the paper. Craig Wright says, well, I write in different styles. It's crazy. The whole thing just doesn't smell very good.
Also, when he was being interviewed, like when he was being directly asked, "Are you?" He didn't directly state, "Yes, I am him." Like it was kind of like this loose, shifty eye.
Yeah, he looked away. He didn't look him in the eye when he answered the question. I saw that too.
So, what are the theories in terms of speculation on why the reveal in this point in time?
Let the conspiracy theories begin.
What was assumptions?
Why is it coming out now?
Yeah, why?
Are people like sort of outing him? Is he exposed?
Well, no. This was his own media campaign. He contacted these. By the way, one of the journalists discovered that he's been working with a ghostwriter for like the last 2 years on his own story. And by the way, that journalist believes that this is Satoshi Nakamoto, the guy writing the book, but he kind of has a vested interest in him being Satoshi Nakamoto. But
his rationale of coming out is he wants to protect people and not let his staff and his family and friends be sort of exposed. But him coming out is doing exactly that, right?
Seems to me.
Sort of like always people working with him are going to be
I don't know, but if I wanted to be private, I wouldn't contact GQ and the BBC and The Economist.
I just think like the inconsistency is like so obvious. It's kind of like ridiculous. Like he's such a smart guy.
Well,
why is like so kind of stuff.
It's interesting because, you know, he didn't go to a crypto publication for this, right? He went to the mainstream news. And one of the things that I saw back when I was in the corporate world, when this is a phenomenon that I saw way more than once. And there's when highly technical people are trying to be persuasive, they can enter into a very particular way of speaking and use a lot of jargon, a lot of special language, so that the people in the room cannot really understand what's going on, but it sounds good. Sounds like you're smart, right? It sounds like you know what you're talking about. And actually, he may know what he's talking about when it comes to cryptography, but that doesn't mean he's Satoshi Nakamoto. Let's go back to his paper. Can I find it? He doesn't actually say much. Actually, he never says that he's Satoshi Nakamoto in the paper, and he doesn't. When it comes to the proof, he doesn't actually prove anything in this paper. He proves how one could do it. This is how one would go about it, right? He doesn't provide this John Paul Shart letter that he's talking about, at least not that I could find. The Reddit and everybody else is going crazy, like, what file is he talking about, and blah 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 blah. But the real smoking gun is an analysis by, you know, I went through and read all kinds of, you know, forum posts, and there's the Economist article. Even they're skeptical. Is he? Forbes is like, experts fear it's an epic scam. Here's the definitive paper. Why Craig Wright is not Satoshi Nakamoto. Of course, this is Dorian Nakamoto, the guy who was last accused of being Satoshi Nakamoto, who didn't want any press whatsoever, and they tracked him down and put him on the cover of Newsweek. But anyway, this goes into, this is as much of a layman's account of what happened as possible, and it's still quite wonky. I didn't try and retrace these steps, but I did follow the logic. And what they did was they took the proof that he is proposing to provide and suggest that he took a former proof from a former Bitcoin transaction that was known to be Satoshi Nakamoto, and he was able to reverse engineer another proof that made it look like, and if you provide it to a journalist that works at The Economist or is not a cryptocurrency expert, it looks like you've made the proof work. It looks like you've made something spit out from this paper, this letter, John Paul Shart, a hash from that proves that you have control over this Bitcoin address in question, right? But like I said before, it would have been as simple as Satoshi Nakamoto proving the same thing to one of his colleagues, maybe the partner of this guy, Craig Wright, who is now dead. We don't know, right? It's very fishy, right? Because he could prove it like in an instant. Any one of us in this room could receive half a penny from the first block, and if it came from him and he could do it over and over again, he is Satoshi. It's a slam dunk. Could be nobody else, right? Or maybe the guy who killed Satoshi, maybe. But anyway, what remains to be seen is if this guy can produce anything else Satoshi-like. Why did he do this, right? He's got several tech companies. He claims to have a supercomputer that's in the top 20 in the world, although the company he claimed to be working with denies this. Why would he be doing this? A lot of people say that he was outed by one of the people that used to work for him, saying that he was claiming to be Satoshi Nakamoto in meetings with financiers. So you can imagine someone might create this elaborate way to prove that they're Satoshi Nakamoto and say, hey, don't you want to give me a bunch of money for my supercomputer project, right? Now, how did he fool Gavin? He claimed, what they say is that there were other transactions that prove that he was Satoshi Nakamoto, but they're not exposing those transactions to the world at large. Why? Why wouldn't they do that?
Well, what about my code? I think this is the same story like Michael, you know, like the way he left Bitcoin, the orchestrated blow with New York Times. When the Bitcoin price was falling yesterday, the Ethereum price shot up like 20% on a heavy volume. So,
Bitcoin's Ethereum's up 33% week on week from this time last week.
no, yesterday after this news came out, the Bitcoin price went down and the Ether price shot up like crazy, you know. And a lot of parallels. So Gavin wouldn't be fooled by this, you know. He's not that. Gavin is not stupid. So, and Michael wouldn't do what he did voluntarily, like just to say fuck you, you know. So there is something, and you know, both of them were together on this Bitcoin XT project.
Yeah. And Gavin is now involved with Bitcoin Classic.
Yeah, a lot.
You saw that Bitcoin Classic has got 25% of the nodes out there now. If he were to identify Satoshi Nakamoto, and so Satoshi Nakamoto were to say, hey, everybody get on board with Bitcoin Classic, maybe that would happen. Food for thought. We're out of time. Thank you guys for coming. It's really great to be back. Great to see a full and packed house. We're going to do this again next week. Like I said, in the meantime, we'll be on the Facebook group, the Bitcoins in Bali Facebook group. Check out our YouTube channel and please subscribe. Sometimes we publish stuff outside of the filter, so you can stay on top of that. And tell your friends about Bitcoin 101. We've got that coming up later this month. We're trying to build a Bitcoin economy in Ubud, and we need your help. So send your friends, send your family, send yourself, if you haven't done it already, to Bitcoin 101, May 21st. Thanks again for coming. We'll be back here again, same time, same channel, next Tuesday night, 5 p.m. local in downtown Ubud, Bali at Ubud. Thanks for coming, guys.
So when's the movie coming out?